Hello friends, welcome to the third video. Today we will start the third lecture of the taxation crash course. So let's start now. Hello friends, let's start the first topic for today. The first topic is that the determination of the fact whether a particular income is taxable or not depends upon the residential status of the individual. The residential status tells us about the fact that a particular income of the individual is taxable or not. Next, let's move to the next point. Residential status and citizenship are two different concepts. Residential status is different and citizenship is different. Please note this in your notebook. A foreign citizen can also be a resident for the purpose of the Income Tax Act. This is the example of the point which is stated above. Residential status is determined for every previous year. We have to calculate residential status for every previous year which is given, like for 17, 18, 18, 19 and so on. And let's move to the next part. This is a very important part, mark it as a star. Let's move to the next part, which is the section 6.1, residential status of an individual. If he satisfies any of the two conditions, he will be treated as a resident. For example, the A, he or she stays in India for 182 days or more during the relevant previous year. Think that she is in India for 182 days in the previous year 21-22. If she stays in India for 184 days, she will directly qualify as a resident because she has stayed in India for more than 182 days, and here it is clearly specified that if he or she satisfies any of the two conditions, he will be treated as a resident. So he qualifies the first condition, so he will be treated as a resident. Then if he stays in India for 178 days, then he stays in India for less than 182 days. So we have to check the next condition. The next condition says that he or she stays in India for 60 days or more during the relevant previous year and 65 days or more during the 4 years immediately preceding the relevant previous year. Think that he or she has stayed in India for 400, he or she stays in India for in previous year 21-22. So we have to check the days of stay in 17-18, 18-19, 19-20 and 20-21 respectively. If she stays in India for more than 365 days during these 4 years, more than 365 days during these 4 years, so we will directly tell them to be a resident. But there is another condition. If she stays in India for 160 days or more and 365 days or more during the 4 years immediately preceding the relevant previous year. So both these conditions must be satisfied. Both these conditions, which is this: 60 days or more during the relevant previous year and 365 days or more during the 4 years immediately preceding the relevant previous year. For example, she has stayed in India for more than 365 days and she stays in India in the relevant previous year for 52 days. So she stays in India for less than 60 days. So both the conditions are not satisfied. So this whole point will be proved to be wrong, and the first condition is also not satisfied. So she will be treated as a non-resident. And next point is that if she stays in India for 62 days and she also stays in India for more than 365 days during those 4 years immediately preceding the relevant previous year, then she will qualify as a resident and she will satisfy this point, and only one condition has been satisfied, so she will be treated as resident. I will also tell you one thing. If think that these both conditions are not satisfied, that she has not stayed in India for 182 days or more during the relevant previous year, and she also has not stayed in India for 60 days or more in the relevant previous year and 365 days or more in the immediately preceding 4 years of the relevant previous year. So if both the conditions are not satisfied, we will directly tell them to be non-resident. If we want to treat them as a resident, we will check whether any one of the points are satisfied, and if both the conditions are not satisfied, then he or she will be treated as a non-resident. Please keep it in mind. In case of resident, any one is there, and in case of non-resident, both the conditions must not be satisfied. Okay? Let's move to the next part. Hello friends, let's start the next part. The next part says that there is a special rule for people covered under special category for 3 cases. The case is that the stay in India should be 182 days or more in the relevant previous year for the 1, 2, and the 3 cases. If if there is a citizen who leaves India for taking up any business, profession, or employment or vacation outside India, so we must treat that if the stay in India of him or her is 182 days or more in the relevant previous year, we will tell him or her to be a citizen of India directly. In the second case, if an individual lives as a member of crew of Indian ship outside India, being a citizen of India. If the person is a citizen of India and he leaves India on a ship outside India, then we must see whether the continuous discharge certificate is given or not. The period when the continuous discharge certificate is given and ending on the date when the vessel comes back, we must count this as a stay outside India. The period during which he boards the ship and he comes back till the period this period is considered to be his residence outside India, and this period will not be counted. So this condition is also done, and the last condition is that both the conditions must be satisfied here. He must be a citizen of India or person of Indian origin, and the individual should have business, profession, or employment outside India, and he must come to India on a visit. Both the conditions must be satisfied. He should be an Indian citizen. Citizenship must be confirmed, or he must be a person of Indian origin. I will explain what is a person of Indian origin in the next part. The individual has business, profession, and employment outside India, and he has come to India on a visit. You remember these both conditions has to be satisfied, and you have to remember these 3 conditions. These are very important. You have to remember these 3 conditions, and these 3 conditions have a common point, which is that the stay in India should be 182 days or more in the relevant previous year, in which he arrives in India or in which he is staying in India. Is considered to be the relevant previous year. I am writing PY as previous year, and assessment here will be written as AY. Okay, let's move to the next part. Let me explain the third topic to you, which is the person of Indian origin. If any of the 3 conditions are satisfied, then we must see the 3 cases, which is if he is born in undivided India, which is before the 15th August 1947. If before the independence he is born in India, then he will be treated as a Indian or person of Indian origin. And second is that either of his parents are born in undivided India. If his or her parents are born in undivided India, then he or she will be treated as a person of Indian origin. And if either of his grandparents are born in undivided India, then he or she will be treated as a person of Indian origin. This will include both father and mother. Both father and mother. Grandparents here means parents of both father and mother. Parents of both father and mother. Okay. Let's move to the next part. Let me explain the third topic to you, which is the person of Indian origin. If any of the 3 conditions are satisfied, then we must see the 3 cases, which is if he is born in undivided India, which is before the 15th August 1947. If before the independence he is born in India, then he will be treated as a Indian or person of Indian origin. And second is that either of his parents are born in undivided India. If his or her parents are born in undivided India, then he or she will be treated as a person of Indian origin. And if either of his grandparents are born in undivided India, then he or she will be treated as a person of Indian origin. This will include both father and mother. Both father and mother. Grandparents here means parents of both father and mother. Parents of both father and mother. Okay. Let's move to the next part. Let's discuss a sum on residential status now. Mr. Alok is an Indian citizen and member of a crew of a Singapore-bound Indian ship. If he stays in India for 400 days in the last 4 years, and during the last 7 years his stay is 750 days. It is also given that a date entered into continuous discharge certificate in respect of joining ship by Mr. Alok is 6 June, and the date entered into CDC continuous discharge certificate in respect of signing off is 9 December 2020. So we must, when we see the line that he is a crew of a member of Indian ship, we must immediately understand that the residential status, this is a special case of the residential status in which the 182 days or more conditions should be satisfied here. So we must see that from the period of 6 June to 9 December 2020. For the period of calculation of his stay in India, we must calculate his stay outside India. Okay. For example, if you want to calculate the stay outside stay in India, we must do like this, that 365 days minus stay outside India equals to days stayed in India in the relevant previous year. Okay, so we must calculate the stay outside India and we must deduct it from 365 days from 6th June to 9th December. June, July, August, September, October, November and December. Must calculate. For calculation, we must not take the 6th June and the 9th December, because on the day of the 6th of June he has already left India because the continuous discharge certificate has already been issued, and in the respect of signing of 9 December shall also not be included because he has not arrived in India according to it, and he is outside and he is considered outside India. So 6th June must be considered here. So in June we calculate that 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 5 days, and June has 30 days to 25. In July 31, August also 31, September 30, October 31, November 30, December 31. Okay, let me calculate. 25, 31, 31, 30, 31, 30, and sorry, for December only 9 days should be taken. Okay? 9 days, it's 187 days. Total is coming as 187 days. So we must deduct it from, say, 65. 65 days minus 187. So 365 minus 187, we get it to be 178 days, which is less than 182 days, and therefore will not be considered to be a citizen of India, to be a resident of India, and he will be qualified as non-resident. We qualified as non-resident. So the sum is over. Let's move to the next part. Calculation of ROR and NOR. Section 66A. The calculation of section 66A, we must see that an individual who is a resident as per section 6.1 shall qualify as a resident but not ordinary resident if satisfy any of the two conditions. Any of the two conditions are: individual stays in India for 729 days or less in the past 7 years immediately preceding the relevant previous year. If your stay in the past 7 years, if in the year immediately preceding the relevant previous year, for example, the previous year is previous year 2021, you must see the previous 7 years days of stay and if during the past 7 years you have stayed for 729 days or less, and if the condition is satisfied, you will directly qualify to be a resident but not ordinary resident. And you must also check that the individual is a non-resident in India for at least 9 out of 10 years immediately preceding the relevant previous year. The individual who is resident as per section, it is given individual who is resident as per section 6(1), and he is non-resident for India for at least 9 out of 10 years immediately preceding the relevant previous year. You know what is a non-resident, and if he or she is a non-resident in India for at least 9 out of 10 years, that means she has to be at least 9 out of 10 years a non-resident in India to be qualified for this category. And if she is qualified here, and if both the conditions are not satisfied, you will write that if both the conditions are not satisfied, the individual will be treated as ROR. ROR means resident and ordinary resident. Here, if any of the two conditions are satisfied, you can directly tell him to be a resident but not ordinary resident. But if both the conditions are not satisfied, then he will be directly treated as ROR. You can take also the other way around. If it is 730 days or more in the past 7 years, he will be directly called a ROR. And if he is a resident in India for a maximum 8 out of the past 10 years immediately preceding the relevant previous year, then he will be directly qualified as ROR. This is the other way around. You must only remember these 2 points. It's enough. That individual stays in India for 729 days or less, and the individual is non-resident in India for at least 9 out of 10 years immediately preceding the relevant previous year. So let's start the next topic. Let's come to the next topic. The next discussion is about the Indian citizen, a person of Indian origin who is settled outside India and coming to India on a visit, and his income other than his income from foreign sources exceeds 50 lakhs. His income from other than his foreign sources means his Indian income exceeds 15 lakhs. Okay. So if his Indian income exceeds 15 lakhs and he is a person of Indian origin or an Indian citizen, and he is settled outside India and coming to India on a visit, all these conditions must be satisfied for this category. As we have already read in section 6(1), that if he has stayed in India for more than 182 days and he has stayed in India for 365 days or more in the 4 years immediately preceding the relevant previous year, and 60 days or more, and 60 days, more than 60 days in the relevant previous year. Okay. So if any of the conditions are satisfied, you will tell him to be a resident. But in this case, things are different. In this case, where Indian citizen and person of Indian origin and his total foreign sources exceeds 15 lakhs, you must consider in comparison to 60 days, you must consider 120 days here. That he must stay in India for 120 days or more in the relevant previous year, and the rest of all of the things remain same. 65 days or more in the past 4 years immediately preceding the relevant previous year, and the 182 days or more in the relevant previous is permanent, so it will not change. Only the second condition will change here, and like the same in section 6(6)(a), you will see that there is a condition that he must be a non-resident in India for 8 out of 10 years, and he must stay in India for 729 days or less in the past 7 years immediately preceding the relevant previous year. So in the 7 years immediately preceding the relevant previous year, and or non-resident for at least 9 out of 10 years immediately preceding the relevant previous year. So these will remain the same. Only one new thing will be added. If he stays in India for 120 days or more, if he stays in India for 120 days or more, we will see that 120 days or more in the relevant previous year, then we will directly tell him to be a resident but not ordinary resident. If he has satisfied the section 6.1, after checking 6.1 we check the section 6.6a. So after checking 6.1, if we find that he has satisfied this condition, that 120 days in the relevant previous year, he has stayed for 120 days or more in the relevant previous year, he must be directly qualified as a resident but not ordinary resident. And if 120 days category is not satisfied here, we must check this condition that 7 years immediately residing in the relevant previous year and non-resident for at least 9 out of 10 years. So these two conditions must be checked. And there is another condition that if the person is not liable to pay tax in any other country, then he will be qualified to be a resident but not ordinary resident. Under section 6.1a. These are the two miscellaneous conditions and we have learned both of them successfully. Let's move to the next part. Next we come to the topic of residential status of other than individuals. Here two things are covered, which are HUF and partnership firm. If the control and management is wholly or partially in India, then the HUF will be considered to be a resident. And if the control and management is not wholly or partially out in India and is outside India, then he will be directly told to be a non-resident. Now what is control and management in the case of HUF? Control and management in the case of HUF is Karta. The control and the management of HUF is the Karta. The Karta is the base of the residential status. If the Karta stays in India during this period, the stay in India of the Karta will be determined to be the stay of the HUF. So HUF is the base for calculation. And in the case of partnership firm, if the control and management is wholly or partially in India, it is the same. Here control and management is the active partners. Active partners. Here the decisions are taken by the active partners, and the place of the residence of the active partners is the base for calculation of the residential status of partnership firm. So in the case of HUF, Karta is the base, and in the case of active partners, in the case of partnership firm, active partners is the base. So if the Karta resides in India during such period of more than 182 days, the Karta is a resident, then HUF will be considered to be a resident. But here in the case of the HUF, we don't have to check 182 days or more. If the Karta stays in India during the period, the HUF will be considered to be a resident, and if the active partner stays in India, so the partnership firm will be considered to be a resident during that period. So 182 days or more is not applicable in these cases. It is only applicable in the case of Karta and active partner, and only in case of individuals. And the residential status is now completely over. We'll try to discuss the incidence of tax in the next part. Let's start the last topic for today, which is the incidence of tax. The incidence of tax is divided into three parts in section 9, section 5 and 7 and section 5. So we will take the three parts as income deemed to accrue or arise in India, income received or deemed to be received in India, or income accrued or income arising abroad and also received abroad. So if the income deemed to accrue or arise in India, if the income is deemed to accrue or arise in India, means the income is generated through India or the income is generated in India. So this will be taxable in case of ROR, NOR, and in case of NR. NR means non-resident. You already know what is ROR and what is NOR and what is NR. In the case of income received but deemed to be received in India, this is taxable in case of resident but not ordinary resident. It is also taxable in case of not ordinary resident, and it is also taxable in case of non-resident. But received here means receipt. It is not not received as remittance or transfer. Remittance means when you transfer money from one country to another country. For example, if you are earning some money in England and you are remitting it to India, so this will not be considered because you have earned the income in England, and the income is deemed to accrue and arise in England. So if you transfer the money, it is not taxable in India because it is already deemed to accrue or arise in England. So this is over. And in the case of section 5, income accruing or arising from abroad and also received abroad. So this will be taxable in case of resident and ordinary resident. Remember one thing, in case of resident and ordinary resident, everything will be taxable except agricultural income. Everything will be taxable in the case of ROR. And in the case of taxable, in case of NOR in the two cases, it is taxable in the case of NOR in two cases. If the business is carried on outside India but controlled from India. Mind the words, if the business is carried on outside India, you are carrying out your business in Australia and controlling it from India. So this will be covered here, and it will be taxable. It will not be taxable in the case of NOR. And in the case of profession carried on outside India but set up in India, that if you are carrying on the profession outside India and setting up, and it is set up in India, for example, someone is teaching to students in Australia and he is recording the videos in India, and his profession is set up in India and he is providing the services outside India, so he will be covered here. So in the two cases, this will be taxable in the case of NOR, that the business carried on outside India and controlled from India. This is not taxable in the case of NR also. I forgot to write here that in case of NR, non-resident, the income accruing or arising abroad and also received abroad will not be taxable in the case of non-resident. Okay, so the class is over. Bye bye guys.